But I can tell you one thing right now. I wish I had my pastor with me.
Doug Barber?
Yes.
I do too.
Because he'd let you have it. And he'd let you have it with both barrels. Everything he preaches is strictly about.
Now, folks, tonight we're actually, this is one of our feature commercials that's running that is advertising the television end of our blitz for the next 2 weeks. And as I believe, Matt, did you actually play the commercial for the tent? We have okay, tell me when you're ready for that. We have a commercial running for the tent as well. And the part here has some explanation, and I think it's quite comical if it weren't so serious. And it has to do with this preacher right here. And this conversation actually started at a Sonic. And all right, let's run the tent program, the tent commercial.
Wild things about the Church of Christ, but now's your chance to find out for yourself. Starting September the 12th through the 23rd at 7 p.m. each night at the Eden Fairgrounds, you can find out the truth about the Church of Christ. No collections or offerings will ever be taken, and your questions are always welcome. Don't believe the gossip. Only believe the gospel.
Okay, so you can see there where we are at the tent, and then on this other commercial, we're featuring this gentleman, Doug Barber, because one of his members is at the Sonic, and she's saying, she's in a discussion with Mark McMinnis, and she's saying, I wish my pastor was here. He would unload both barrels. Well, can I tell you this? Doug Barber is not going to be involved with us at all. This man is scared to death of an encounter with the Church of Christ. I mean, this is the church that tried to imprison Micah for a maximum of 2 years for going over there and asking a question and having a phone camera, a phone that would record with him. They had a gigantic audience there. They had asked the whole community to come out and hear their 2 great preachers from Liberty University who were supposed to be on the hot seat. That's how they advertise it. Come to Westover Baptist and ask your hardest question. And our great scholars from Liberty University, who are really scared to death too, wouldn't take a live call. If they're scared of a live call than they are a snake. These guys are just as timid as they can be. All of their questions were pre-submitted. They had time to look them over. And all Micah wanted to know was why one of the resident scholars at Liberty University, who allowed a commercial to run that he was going to be on television with me, why he backed out. Why didn't you show up on our Thursday night program live, like you said, in front of the camera, with your secretary, with her pad, with the calendar, everything was laid out. And so they didn't show up. He didn't show up. So Micah goes to this hot seat event to ask him that single question. Micah was there 1 minute. The recording was going, so we know exactly how long he was there from the time they said you need to leave to the time that he left. 1 minute. And not only that, he was being harassed by an off-duty sheriff's deputy on the way out. This guy kept trying to get Micah, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And, Micah's basically trying to get away from these folks. And that's the way these guys operate. They don't have the Bible. Yes, they have individuals who are involved with any number of harassing tactics. You're on What Does the Bible Say?
Hello, Johnny Ross. This is Brother Marcus Lawrence.
Hello, Marcus. Where are you calling from?
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. What brings you onto our radar, Marcus?
Well, I just want to let the viewer audience know that I'm very much supportive of what you're trying to help the community and the brotherhood to realize that false teachers do exist, and we need to try to put a stop to that.
Well, we appreciate that support, Marcus, more than you know, because we actually have preachers that are in association with us that are not willing to put the spotlight on the people that are involved with the false teachers. I mean, it's a very timid Would you agree that preachers in the churches of Christ are very timid these days?
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. Ephesians 5:11. Don't have fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but we have to reprove them. A lot of times we have the mentality to go along to get along, and we have to say we have to be about saving souls.
Okay. So Marcus, can I ask you, could you identify personally with the gentleman that came in here from Atlanta, Georgia, that had been in a church that he ended up having to leave, a Church of Christ, that he had to leave because of, they're being timid to stand against false teachers? Did you identify with that gentleman?
Yes, sir. I can very much identify because I'm dealing with the same situation here in Louisville, Kentucky. They're brethren gospel preachers. They're aligning themselves with other false gospel preachers as well. And
you want to tell us some of the congregation, because what we're doing is trying to avoid these individuals if they're going to use people like the a cappella vocal bands. New Birth, I believe, is some of them that are over in. You can tell us on the air of a congregation that's using those kinds of vocal bands. It's, we don't mind. We want to get that information out so brethren can stay away from there.
Well, there's a congregation in the Church of Christ that I just actually came out of. Once I realized that cappella singing groups were wrong. At the time I didn't realize it, and then I started studying my Bible, looking at passages such as Ephesians 5:19 and Colossians 3:16, and just being a part of your what does the Bible say continuously, and help from other brethren. And I realized that that's wrong. We're to have congregational singing, not groups, praise teams and such. But to answer your question, the congregation I just left from is Newburgh Church of Christ.
Okay.
In Louisville, and they have a cappella group called May New.
Okay.
Actually, there's several groups. One is May New, a well-known a cappella group in this area in Louisville. They go about having their performances in other congregations in this area, and they go out to other congregations in the South, like in Florida and different areas like that.
Okay.
There's another group called.
Well, I'm more interested.
So there's several groups, singing groups, in the congregation that I just left from.
Okay, I'm more interested in the congregations, the names of the congregations. And I know that you were in one congregation where we were supposed to come over and be involved in an event where the preaching went for 8 or 12 hours. And once we started asking questions about other people, then that blew it. And that was like last year, was it not?
Yes, sir. I would tell you that the congregation is North Harding Church of Christ in Radcliffe, Kentucky.
Okay.
This congregation, the preacher there is Dennis Hogan. He does not teach the truth on marriage and remarriage and divorce. I was expected to, supposed to teach a Sunday morning class. Well, actually, I'm supposed to preach on Sunday on marriage and remarriage and divorce. And the very last minute, they don't have elders there at North Harding Church of Christ in Radcliffe. But the brethren had a meeting with me a week before I was expected to preach this lesson, this sermon. And they told me they rather have the preacher, Dennis Hogan, the preacher, rather than me. You see, I knew that Dennis Hogan didn't preach the whole truth on marriage and divorce, and I was going to preach the truth on marriage and divorce.
Well, can you tell me this? Can you tell me?
Him than me.
Okay,
I left that congregation.
All right, we're pressed for time. Can you tell me can you put a name on the doctrine that he was teaching on marriage, divorce, and remarriage? Like which particular group? Like you got James D. Bales over here teaching that if you're not a Christian, then you can marry as many times as you want to. Olin Hicks, do you know who he adhered to?
Repeat that one more time. I'm sorry.
Like who it was that championed his position. Did he call his marriage, divorce, remarriage? Was it something that James D. Bales taught? I'm trying to give our listeners an opportunity to like tag that, because generally these preachers will have some big preacher that they follow on their teaching on marriage, divorce, and remarriage. You don't remember him saying that?
No, I don't. But there are other gospel preachers in this area that have association with Dennis Hogan.
Okay. All right. Well, we're pressed for time to get on this other subject too, and I'm going to jump off of that, what you just said, and get into our other segment. So, Marcus, we appreciate you calling in, and we are encouraged that we're doing some good in Louisville, and that we're helping some brethren see some of the things going on. Thanks for calling.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, folks, just a segment there where, last night someone called me from Salina, Tennessee. Somebody called me from Colorado. Someone is calling here from Louisville, Kentucky. These are individuals. Florida called in, Georgia, individuals that are calling and saying, man, we're learning so much about our own brotherhood. And as we mentioned, a gentleman came all the way in from Georgia. He just needed to get his obedience right, and he saw so much going on in the Church of Christ that he just didn't see in the Bible, that he was worried, was he even getting the basics down right? And so we feel your pain, and that's one of the reasons that we're really giving out some information. Had people calling us from Texas today as well, elders talking with us from congregations down in Texas that are reaping the benefits from the broadcast that we did on Wednesday night and Sunday night, where we're exposing the things that are going on in the Church of Christ. But tonight, we want to expose some of the things that's going on in our community. This was a call that came in today. This recording was from some months ago, but we got calls lined up that came in today as a result of this commercial that we're running. Baptist preacher who is basically being called upon to open up both barrels, and that's fine. We don't worry about that kind of thing. This is kind of a spoof on him holding that shotgun, but he's going to be going the other way. I promise you that Doug Barber does not want to have anything to do with the discussion associated with the churches of Christ, gospel preachers that have Bibles. Not going to happen. We've talked to him on numerous occasions over the phone, tried to talk with him in person. You just don't get anywhere. This guy and his brother are both cowards. They're scared to death. And his brother's over here at the Pentecostal church preaching. He's a Baptist, and he's over here preaching at the Pentecostal church. And I'm not saying he's preaching all the time over there, but they trade pulpits. What in the world is behind that? They don't teach anything the same. And see, that goes on in our area. Liberty University is right up here, Jerry Falwell's Baptist University, and they give out preaching certificates to these guys who are in the Pentecostal and the different holiness and things of that nature. But you can get a certificate from Liberty, but you can't preach in one of their Baptist churches. See, they'll give you a certificate, and you can go out and get in your you can go with your Pentecostal holiness friends, and you can preach for them with your Liberty University piece of paper, but you can't preach in a Baptist church. See, that just makes no sense. They're basically saying, well, we'll teach you the Bible, but if you don't adhere to Baptist doctrine, which is not in the Bible, and so that's where we are tonight. So individuals that are talking with us, some of them are, they're saying different things. Let's just look at one of these calls. This is a call that we actually listened to today. Now, I was not on this broadcast. I was just listening to the broadcast. I actually was called on the phone and participated, but then I started listening.
Everything he talked about, we talked about the same thing.
And I was like, oh my goodness.
But when it comes to, I agree with Johnny Robinson 100%. I'm Baptist. But everything he preaches out of the Bible, we preach the same thing.
Well, they don't like the Baptists.
Everything he talks about, we talk about the same thing in the same way. He preaches the same way we
You know he's going to disagree with you totally about that.
I know it, but
Call him and ask him.
he can come to my church. He can come to my church and see how we preach. I'm inviting him to.
He'd love to come.
Now, did you hear that? Two things. First of all, the person is saying that we preach the same thing. that the person agrees 100% with me because we preach the same thing, and that caller's in the Baptist church. And then the caller says, come over, and I'm inviting Johnny to come and see how we preach. Not going to happen. Now, I will certainly go. But the thing is the person on the phone does not have an authorization from the pastor. Once I show up and the question or the statement has been put forth that your members here called in on live television saying that you all teach the same thing in the Baptist church that we teach in the Lord's church, then that pastor, he's going to have a fit. He is not going to like that. And how do I know that? We have, let me just have my hard drive start working here while we're on the broadcast, and we'll basically show what we mean by that. We have documented events where we go out by invitation, and it ends up being the same almost everywhere we go. Individuals end up just acting just unbelievable. Now, I could show you some that were just like a meeting. Let me just let this one run while we're waiting on myself to find one. Take a listen to this.
We're waiting on the preachers, really. Here?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna preach out of some more.
Okay. Your name?
Ryan Scheidel.
He says it's like Paul handled it. That's why they're handled like this.
If you even ask you before, what is your I'm saying, what are you going to do with So, yeah, my only concern is because, you know, you take it for something, you can take that and draw from it what you want, and you can say what you want, and then you know, it could be a little defamation of character.
No, and so, well, we're not using defamation of character. I mean, we're going to be able
to, right?
Well, it will go on YouTube. It'll go on TV around here also.
But did you ask any of these people, they want to be?
There was a lady that walked out a while ago, and she recorded it there.
Hey, she's going to give an account to God too.
Okay, so are we sending my recording?
Well, no, wait a minute.
Okay, you said give an account to God.
She's doing it in a different light. She's not going to take it home and tear it down and say what.
I'm not tearing it down either. We're going to use the fact that
I'm not a Baptist. Why would you come to a Baptist church if you didn't want to be a Baptist?
Try to teach people that are in the Baptist church. Where is your proof for the Baptist church?
My proof of the Baptist
in the Bible.
Baptist is a terminology, not a church.
And there's nothing in the New Testament that would lead me to the conclusion that I need to be a Baptist. Let me ask you this.
Are
you a Pentecostal?
Jesus Baptist.
Are you a Pentecostal?
No, sir.
Are you a Baptist?
Am I a Baptist?
Yes.
I believe in the baptism.
Okay.
The Holy Spirit.
You're not a Pentecostal. Are you a Baptist?
Am I a Baptist?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a Baptist.
Okay. There's nothing.
I label myself as a Baptist.
Right. There's nobody in the New Testament that.
Sir, hold on. You can't touch him. Hey.
You're going to sign off paper. You don't have a sign off. Nobody permission. We don't fight. We don't fight. I'm calling the law. Please.
Watch it, Micah. Watch it.
Please.
Now watch it, Micah.
I'm going to call the law. Please.
Now, I probably was doing too many things at one time, and my audio continued to play, but the video stopped playing. So if you had been seeing that in real time, I think you would just been probably on the edge of your seat there, because this turned into a riot. And, you know, it was a meeting that was advertised, Peaceful Baptist Church. They're having a revival, a call come, whatever, and a lady was in there videoing. But my point of playing that is to demonstrate that when you go to these different denominations, they're not glad to see anybody. The guy said, well, you'll take the video and go home and strip it down and make it say what you want to say. We don't do that. We cannot play something in its entirety when it's 30 minutes long and we only have an hour show. Why would we want to take up the whole hour when you're trying to get to that guy saying, I am a Baptist. I label myself as a Baptist. I will not let you call me a Pentecostal. And he said, the reason why he is a Baptist is he was baptized. Well, the Pentecostals, they think that they went through the baptism of the Holy Ghost on the day of Pentecost. That's why they call themselves Pentecostal. And being baptized does not make you that labeling yourself, I'm a Baptist because I'm being baptized, and then writing a history that everybody who's been baptized is then a Baptist. That's not even genuine at all. The Mormons baptize, and we're not talking about sprinkling, whatever, they immerse. You've got large denominations that immerse, not just the Baptist denomination. And so the Church of Christ is not a denomination, we immerse. The Church of God denomination, they immerse. The Pentecostals, they immerse. Well, they're not. You don't get to put a shroud around them and say, well, they're all Baptists because they have been immersed. That's not New Testament. That's not the way the New Testament talked about. The only Baptist in the New Testament was the person who began baptizing people from the very beginning, and that's John the Baptizer. Then John had disciples. They weren't called Baptists. They're just described as disciples. And then when Jesus ends up establishing his church, the church is not called the Church of Baptists. It's not called the Baptist Church because people were baptized. The church ends up being the church that belongs to Jesus. I mean, that's basically what Jesus said. He said, I will build my church. Upon this rock, I will build my church. Well, what is the church that belongs to Jesus? Well, it's called the Church of Christ. In Romans 16:16, it's called the Church of God in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 2. Now, the Baptists don't teach that. And you might say, well, Johnny, do you know everything about the Baptists? No, I don't know everything about the Baptists, but I do know enough to get their books. And I tell you, my friends, I am a generous person when it comes to their books and the things that we have available. I will let you see all kinds of information that's associated with the Baptists around here. I have gotten all kinds of literature from the Baptists themselves. Now, this is actually a piece of literature that I have, and it says that baptism is not essential to salvation in any sense, and yet it is of immense import in fulfilling a definite purpose, both as an ordinance in the kingdom of Christ and the doctrine. Now, this is called the moral dignity of baptism. It's a whole book that the Baptists put out about the moral dignity of baptism, but it's not essential, they say, in any sense to your salvation. Now, are you getting this? It's not essential in any sense to your salvation. Now, that's really an eye-opening thing right there. I don't teach that. There are no persons that I know associated with the churches of Christ that say that baptism does not have anything to do with your salvation. Now, that is absolutely a distinct doctrine of the Baptist church. It is not in any way associated with what we teach. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because the individual that called on the bus today said that we teach the same thing. We don't teach the same thing. They're teaching something totally different in regard to salvation than we do. So let me just drop down here. I'll see if I can find a couple of other things that I have for you. Here's the Baptist Manual. And let me just go back to that. This is the Baptist Manual, page 166. It actually talks about their history, tries to. And this is, in fact, a false piece of information that they put out in their manual. They say that a gentleman named Dr. Featley is involved in a discussion with Baptists and in 1633. That's just absolutely incorrect. These are not Baptists. I have this book, this debate with Dr. Featley. His name is Thomas Featley. He's a parliamentarian in the Parliament of English government in the 1600s. And I have the original, one of the original prints of this particular event. And it is not, as they say, it is not individuals in a Baptist church. These people present themselves in the pamphlet as members of the Church of Christ. So you just can't trust these individuals. The individual that said that they teach the same thing that we do, that is an incorrect statement, and it just can't be trusted. So let's go back to our video and let's listen to a little bit more that this individual has to say. Let's move to another one. That individual saying that we could come to that church. Never did say where they were. I know that we're not going to be welcome there. and I know that we don't teach the same thing. So that's just totally out of sync with reality. Let's go to 32 minutes here, 32 minutes and 10 seconds right quick, and we'll get another Baptist that calls in. And I want to try to get it right on the money. 32 minutes and 10 seconds. Let's see if we can hit it.
What do you think of this Johnny Robertson commercial with the gun and?
What did they ask him for? What's the problem? What'd you do?
What did they say, that they're gonna run him out or something?
Run him out for what?
Okay, yeah.
Out for what?
Some church member told Johnny or something that her preacher, Doug Barber, was going to give it to him with both barrels.
If he's telling them the truth, if he's reading the Bible now, I listen to Tracy Freeman. He's been preaching 50-some years.
I know, but just that figure of speech, it's like he's going to come shoot it.
Oh no, he just.
Okay, we're getting a message that's low audio, and it's coming from channel 18. There's not anything I can do about that. The audio that we get on channel 18 is just not up. Matt, can you boost the audio at all? Okay, hold on just a minute. Let me move to something else this person says, 3210. Let's see what happens at 3210.
What do you think of this Johnny Robertson commercial with the gun? Free to be hardly any. So, good afternoon.
Yeah, hello. I have to say that the man says he knows when God is coming back. That's too loud, ain't it?
No, we're good.
No, ask Reverend Tracy Freeman. He preaches the Word of God. He preaches the truth. He's a Collinsville Baptist Church, and nobody knows, and he'll...
Okay, she says that Reverend Tracy Freeman is at the Collinsville Baptist Church. Now, you've already had one caller say that the Baptists teach the same thing we do. Then you have this caller saying that Reverend Tracy Freeman preaches at the Collinsville Baptist Church, and that he preaches the same thing that we do. Now, I want you to continue to listen, because she ends up saying that she realized that he was wrong, that Reverend, and we'll get into that in a minute, Reverend Tracy was wrong about one thing. Let's listen.
40 years.
Soon, looking forward to it.
No, ask Reverend Tracy Freeman. He preaches the Word of God. He preaches the truth. He's a Collinsville Baptist Church, and nobody knows, and he'll tell you himself. Even the angels don't know when he's coming back. Only God himself knows. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They're the only ones that know.
What do you think of this Johnny Robertson commercial with the gun and
What are they after him for?
Barber was going to give it to him with both barrels? Shoot him.
Oh, no. That's an expression. That's just a verbal expression. That's all it is.
Yeah, but in today's times.
That's just some way to promote him and advertise it.
Right. I won't argue that. But
He has said, when it comes to tithing, see, I didn't know all that deal. I never thought about it. See, most every preacher has said,
all right, we'll call what?
Not the Bible.
Right. All right, we'll call what? Call him up tonight and challenge him. He's going to be on tonight at 9 o'clock.
What he'll say, because I've called him before, and I have agreed with what he has said when it comes to tithing. See, I didn't know all that deal. I never thought about it. See, most every preacher goes by Malachi 10, you're robbing God.
Okay. Now, she ended up saying that her preacher, Reverend Tracy, whatever, at the Collinsville Baptist Church, he preaches right out of the Bible. Well, number one, he doesn't have a Baptist church in the Bible. And number two, we're going to look at some of these in a list. The Reverend for a man is not in the Bible. And then she ends up saying, you know what? She's called me before, and she, in fact, agrees with us about tithing. She never actually paid attention to that before. All of the other preachers, she says, preaches out of Malachi 10, she said, but it's really not Malachi 10. And so she said that she started paying attention at that point. Now, I kind of wonder why she was paying attention when it came to the pocketbook, but nevertheless, we'll discuss that. You're on What's the Bible Say? Yes, caller.
I was calling in to talk to Johnny.
This is Johnny.
Well, what I'm watching is not live.
Yes, it's live. If you're watching on the antenna, it's delayed. So we're talking live. You're actually in real time on the cable. It'll catch up in just a minute.
Okay.
What's your call? What you need?
All right. I just want to, a while ago you talking a lot of what you say I really like, because to me I always call myself freelance Christian, because I go to all these churches and I've gone to some and asked them when I meet the deacons at the door, what's your doctrine? And I've had them say, we don't have a doctrine. So I don't go to that church. But anyway, I was just thinking a while ago when you were talking about marriage.
Uh-huh.
I really got in that. I wanted to understand it. You know, if you go to Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, it's all about husband and wives and marriage and all that. You get down to verse 15, and it says, but if the unbelieving depart, let them go, for God has called you to peace, and you're no longer held in bondage, the bondage of marriage. And it sounds as if it's freed up the husband and the wife.
No, and sir, that word bondage, you just said bondage of marriage. It doesn't say bondage of marriage.
Well, I said you're no longer held in bondage, but if you read in context, that's what it's referring to.
No, it's not. It isn't. It is not. You
go to the end of the chapter.
You don't get to just say.
Paul says, but we all know that the wife is bound to her husband so long as he shall live.
Okay, now, sir, those are two different words.
It puts like a little paradox there. So, you know, I've been researching on trying to figure out, you know, the truth on it.
Did you call in to take over the program, sir?
I might like to hear what you said on that subject.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the call, and I'll tell you what we actually say. Okay, you know, folks, when you call in, and I know that gentleman's probably just now catching up with with us on the live stream here. When you call in, don't just take off and don't get ready for dialogue. What he actually said was in 1 Corinthians 7:15, it's saying that you're no longer in bondage, and that's talking about the marriage bondage. No, it's not. That word bondage is not the word for the marriage bond. Right here in verse 15, that word is doulos, bondage. It's slavery. It says you are a sister is not under slavery. It's not saying that you're not still bound to him. You are still bound unless the person commits fornication. That's the only way that you can be unbound from your marriage or death. Now, this word is saying that you do not have to be a slave to this husband. That's what it's basically talking about. If the unbelieving depart, let him depart. You're not a slave. A brother or sister is not a slave. That's the word doulos, and it does not reference the marriage bond. It isn't saying you're free to remarry. It's not telling you anybody they're free to remarry. It's saying you don't have to go with them. You are not a slave to that person. That's not what marriage is. It doesn't put you into a slave-master relationship, husband or wife. So, you know, you have to be careful with how you decide what something is. Sometimes you have to get yourself a dictionary and look up an English word. You're on what's in the Greek. You're on what's the Bible say.
Hello, Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Is there any original Bibles that people can read, or like what's the oldest Bible that has not been rewritten? Do you know?
I have a Bible from the 1500s, and I would not recommend it to you because it's in Old English, and it's, you know, the words like your little s is an F. It looks like an F, and words are spelled differently. It's very difficult to read. I have some other books that are in Old English, but I mean, you can compare it. It's called Matthew's Bible, and it's I think it's actually a I'm not exactly sure which particular translation that it is. It's actually going to be one of the translations that used to get the King James, but I was going to say it's Matthew Henry, but I really don't think it is. It's just called the Matthew Bible. But why do you think that the King James isn't reliable? What's the deal?
No, I was just wanting to know. I didn't know because, I mean, I've got questions because it seems like every time the Bible's rewritten, if it's rewritten by a pastor or whoever's rewriting it, to me, I feel like they might be putting their opinions in rewriting it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Well, the one I'm using here it's been with us for 400 years and it's not changed. And when I get out the other one that I'm telling you about from the 1500s, it's like it, except that it's in Old English and some of the words are, they're just different, but it is the same rendering. You just have to see it to see what I'm saying. And you're welcome to come by anytime. I'll be glad to show it to you. It's, it is an interesting thing.
So is the oldest Bible written in English or no?
I would not say that I know that. I'm not 100% sure if it's one of the oldest ones. I know it's one of the older ones that's easy to get a hold to. Now, some of them, may in fact be in a museum or something of that nature. But, I'm saying that the King James, though, is going to be reliable in the sense that it's going to be just like the one from the 1500s, even though it's 111 years younger than that other one. So that's my answer. Got to keep moving.
All right. Appreciate it, man.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call. All right. Now, what we were saying is this lady said that, I was actually not paying attention and I didn't realize that the Baptists weren't teaching me the truth about tithing. She said they all use Malachi 10. Well, it's actually Malachi 3:10. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out you a blessing that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Now, there's one preacher over in Martinsville, and Caleb may have showed him a couple of weeks ago. He actually said you're either a tipper, a tither, or a thief. So if you're not giving a 10%, he's saying that you're either just trying to tip God or you're stealing. You're a thief. And they go to this verse right here, and they start talking about the fact that individuals are robbing God. And they tell you that you need to bring your tithes into the storehouse. Will a man rob God? And then the lady said, I wasn't paying attention. Well, you know what? Ma'am, you're not paying attention about a lot of things that Reverend Tracy over at Collinsville Baptist is teaching, because for one thing, why is he calling himself Reverend? Number two, why are you in a Baptist church when there's no recorded existence of a Baptist church anywhere before the 1600s? If you start with the New Testament, you're going to find individuals who were Christians and they were not Baptists. There are no Baptist churches in the New Testament. And it says, when they had found him, they brought him to Antioch, and it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people, and the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. Now, where is the scripture that they were called Baptists ever? They were not called Baptists. They were called Christians. These individuals, they did not accept any idea that anybody was a reverend either. That's something that belongs to someone that is reverend. The person who sent redemption unto his people, he hath commanded his covenant forever. Forever holy and reverend is his name. Who is the person who sent redemption and hath commanded his covenant? That would be God. Holy and reverend is his name. Why is your pastor wearing God's designation? Doesn't that bother you? Were you not paying attention that night or that day when Reverend Tracy, whoever, I can't remember his last name, just excuse me. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the individual. He's gotten all the respect that anybody could possibly want. He's wearing God's designation over there. Tracy, you're not paying attention when it comes to what he's teaching. Now, another lady called in and she said that I absolutely do not preach the truth. Now, let's go over here. I really can't do anything about the volume. I hope that some of you can turn your television up. And I mean, this is just the way it is. Channel 18 volume always has to be reboosted. And sometimes we just don't have time from the time that the buzz comes on to the time we get on television. Let's see here, just a minute, 19.
Can you say 100%?
Faithful and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
I think Donald said this morning on today.
Baptist is the reason we're going to
A disturbance.
It's just,
I'm
I'm glad when it gets cool. I love cold weather. I'm a hot natural person.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. Mr. Robinson does not teach the Bible. He does not preach the whole Bible. No, he don't. Because he says, and you've heard him say it, now you know this is right. He says you cannot go to heaven unless you're baptized. The thief on the cross beside Jesus Christ, before
Okay, folks, this is just another person not paying attention. I want you to ask yourself this question. Now, we didn't say that that it's just the case that you have to be baptized to go to heaven. We're basically saying that an individual has to do what the New Testament individuals were teaching back then about going to heaven. And this lady is completely mistaken in regard to, the individuals, what they were saying and what was going on with the thief on the cross. Here's the thing. These individuals that are on the cross with Jesus, if you basically look at these individuals, it is not the case that all that you have to do today is do what they did. These individuals did not know that Jesus was in fact going to raise from the dead. Now, this individual basically says in Luke 23:43, he is asking Jesus about remembering him when he comes in his kingdom. And Jesus said, verily, I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. Now, let me ask you this question. And Mark actually tried to get this lady to call back. Here's the question. Did this person who is called a malefactor in Luke's account, did this person confess that Jesus was the Christ? No. Did this person confess that they believed that Jesus was raised from the dead? No. Did this person know that Jesus was going to raise from the dead? How could this person know that Jesus was going to raise from the dead? Even Jesus' own apostles didn't believe that he raised from the dead. You just keep reading here in Luke chapter 24, and his apostles were very despondent. They didn't believe that he raised from the dead. So you see, not only did the thief not be baptized, the thief didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God, proven to be the Son of God by the resurrection, didn't believe that Jesus raised from the dead, didn't know that Jesus was raising from the dead. These are things that Baptists teach that a person has to do too, have to repent. This thief wasn't told to repent. This thief is not your example, and Baptists don't use anything that this thief didn't or did do. They just want to get out of being baptized. Now, why in the world do you want to get out of being baptized when that's what you actually designate yourself with this title that you've been baptized? You say that, well, I'm a Baptist and I've been baptized, but you don't believe in baptism having anything to do with anything. And then you try to use a person who wasn't baptized. Why don't you just go back and use Abraham? He wasn't baptized either. Moses wasn't baptized. Why don't you just go back there and get them? See, they don't know what they're doing. This is such a mixed up crowd. And as we just mentioned, you've got the lady that called in a few minutes before that, and she said, I wasn't paying attention. I was letting these preachers tell me that I had to tithe, and I started listening to Johnny Robertson, and he's definitely changed the truth. Tithing is not a New Testament doctrine. It's not something that Jesus commanded for Christians. Now, people under the Old Testament, they were commanded to tithe. See, she wasn't paying attention. She's still not paying attention about reverend, paying attention about the fact that the Baptist church is not in the Bible. It's not a church at all. It's made up by men. Now, I know these people are watching. How do I know they're watching? Because all of these calls came through today on the buzz. There were individuals that were basically saying that we're the same as them, inviting us to come over. You had individuals that were saying that we had showed them the truth about tithing. Then you got an individual here that says, Johnny doesn't teach the truth because he says you got to be baptized to go to heaven. Listen, I didn't say anything. If you really want to get down to it, here's what we're going by. We're going by what Jesus says here on this program. It is a program that preaches the gospel. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I commanded you. And lo, I'm with you always, even into the end of the world. That's Jesus talking his own disciples. That's Matthew's account in Matthew chapter 28. In Mark's account of it, we actually have, again, Jesus saying, and he said, go into all the world and preach the gospel. And here, over there, he said, teach these individuals. Go into all the world and teach. Here he says, go into all the world and preach the gospel. Now, when you preach the gospel, then what happens? He that believeth and is baptized. Well, the thief didn't have to be baptized. Doesn't Jesus know his own doctrine? Jesus doesn't teach the truth, according to this Baptist lady. You see, folks, this is where you're not paying attention. And it's showing. It comes out when you get on television and you call out your pastor's name and you say, Reverend Tracy, well, he teaches right out of the Bible. if you got that from Reverend Tracy, you weren't paying attention, because he sure didn't show you where the thief confessed that Jesus was the Son of God, where the thief confessed that he believed that Jesus raised from the dead, that God raised him from the dead, and that the thief repented. Can you go to heaven without believing Jesus is the Son of God? Can you go to heaven without believing that Jesus raised from the dead? Can you go to heaven without repenting of your past sins? No. Well, the thief wasn't told any of those. The thief was just simply told, you will be with me today in paradise. That's basically what the thief information is. There's no record anywhere that anybody then preached that that's what you do to go to heaven. You wait till you're about to die, basically what the Baptists are saying. When you're on your deathbed, you just make sure that you have time to say, Lord, remember me when you come in your kingdom. And basically, you're saved. Well, that's not even the prayer y'all pray. No, I've never heard a Baptist ever pray that prayer right before they died. So you don't even use the prayer or the statement that the thief said directly to Jesus. You don't use that. And then you try to tack in your doctrine somewhere in there. We actually have a Baptist preacher over here in Martinsville who said that the thief knew more than all of Jesus' apostles. When the thief was hanging on the cross, he knew more than the apostles. He actually believed that Jesus was going to raise from the dead. How in the world did you get that out of that verse? This is all there is. Now, here's the verse that Baptists actually teach. This is your verse. If thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and thou shalt believe in thy heart that God raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. Now that's the verse that you all say that you have to adhere to, but you don't want to be baptized. And you say, well, the thief on the cross, he wasn't baptized. Well, excuse me, the thief on the cross didn't say this either. The thief on the cross did not believe nor confess any of this. So what you going to do now? See, y'all are not, you're just not paying attention. You catch yourself in your own trap. And here's the thing. The person who invited me to come to their church, if I came to their church and got the pastor, I tell you what, you do. The gentleman, if you happen to be watching, or the person that was watching that invited me to come to their Baptist church, you get your pastor to say that the thief on the cross is in fact your pattern for you to be saved, that you don't have to be baptized, that you can be saved like the thief on the cross. You get him to say yes or no, and then I'll come and I will ask him about these verses right here, and we'll see who's teaching what. Now, see, they don't want to do that, and that's why we're running this commercial. We're running this commercial about Doug Barber, because that's the way Doug Barber will be. He is not about to let us get in contact with him in a setting like this. That's one of Charles's commercials. You would basically know that would be the one that comes up when I'm trying to check a hunt for our commercial. Let's see if I can find the commercial sitting here.
But I can tell you one thing right now. I wish I had my pastor with me.
Doug Barber?
Yes.
I do too.
Because he'd let you have it. And he'd let you have it for both barrels.
Now, Doug Barber cannot answer about why the thief on the cross is used by them as a proof text, as a pattern, as an example of how to be saved. He cannot answer why the thief did not repent, why the thief did not confess that he believed that Jesus was the Son of God and that he was raised from the dead. He can't answer that, but he's still using that tired old beat to death argument about the thief on the cross being your example. And then he'll turn around and tell you to pray a sinner's prayer that has nothing even remotely to do with what the thief said to Jesus. You see, not only are you all not paying attention about tithes, and he's probably riding your back. There's no doubt about it. He's over here having you tithe. And I know he knows that we're talking about this stuff. I have clips where Doug Barber calls my name out during one of his sermons. They all get a good laugh out of it. That's all they can do is laugh. Now, I see that we did have our phone numbers up. I didn't realize they've been up all this time. And folks, we do appreciate the calls. We appreciate the fact that people were watching today and that they were calling in on the buzz. And, you know, you basically were letting us know that people are watching the broadcast. Matt, I've got a phone call, so I'll just go ahead and. You know what's the Bible say? Okay, I waited too long on that call. I suppose you're going to play the tent commercial as we're leaving out. I want to make sure that you realize that the Church of Christ in Eden has a tent set up at the fairgrounds in Eden, North Carolina. And that tent started tonight, and it will be going for 2 weeks from today. Actually, not from today. It'll be all of next week. You're on What's the Bible Say? Yes, caller. You're live. Okay, I think we're losing that caller. You know, it is confusing, and we'll have to just deal with this week. When you're watching our broadcast, if you're watching it on the computer or you're watching on an antenna, it is delayed. The signal coming out to you is not as quick or as fast as the one on cable. It's delayed. It could be 8, 10, 15 seconds, depending whether you're on antenna or you're on a computer. So don't think that you're not on live. You are on live. You are just getting to hear something that's coming out of North Carolina, and you could be anywhere in the world. We have people watching from Thailand, from Belgium, and you know, you just have to deal with this. It can't get to you that quickly as it does on local cable. You're on What's the Bible Say? Yes, caller. And here's the thing you have to do. You have to listen to your phone. You know, for the life of me, I can't figure out why people call up and they listen to the TV. If you're using your phone, listen to the call. I'm talking to you right then. There's no point in watching television when you're actually using a phone. Listen to your phone, and we'll be live as soon as you call up. Now, I'm going to repeat this because it's possible that the persons who are calling are actually watching on computer or watching on antenna. They didn't get it the first time. They were in between the calls. If you're watching on a computer or on television, on an antenna, you're getting a delay. I'm just telling you, when you're watching a live program over the computer, it emanates in North Carolina. It can't go immediately at the speed of light to your computer. There's going to be a delay. YouTube has a delay. So listen to your phone. That's enough time on that. We're actually out of time here. We're fixing to go off. We hope that you were paying attention tonight. Our broadcast had to do with the fact that some individuals we know are listening. They're paying attention. How do we know that? We heard them today. That was a great call-in program that Star News had that was dedicated to the broadcast that we're doing here tonight and to the tent. We want to make sure that you realize, hey, there are people that are using What Does the Bible Say in numerous ways over in Louisville, Kentucky. They're using it to demonstrate, to get the news out that there are folk in the Church of Christ that are teaching false doctrine. They're sitting